the voice of the Pels, Joel Meyers, who, of course, also has a tremendous perspective, having spent 8 years doing radio and TV covering the Los Angeles Lakers during the end of the Kobe Shaq days, and, of course, the re-emergence of the Lakers to glory with Kobe and Pau. Joel, thanks so much for a couple of minutes, especially on game day. How are you?
Good, Matt. How's it going?
It's going very well. I appreciate it. I'd be remiss if I didn't start with asking you some thoughts. Joel, it seems like everybody has a Kobe story that they've shared. Covering the team on a day-to-day basis for nearly a decade, I'm sure you've got tons. Is there something that always jumps to mind when you think about him?
Well, yeah, his passion, basically, his intensity, his passion, how much he cared. And if you were that kind of person and he recognized that, then the loyalty, he embraced you as well. So I just love being around the guy. I'm not objective. He knows how I felt. And I got to talk to him because you remember, Matt, we had his third to last game in New Orleans. So fortunately for me, I got to spend a few minutes with him before tip and let him know how much he meant to me. So the schedule worked in my favor that time.
Seeing what he did post-retirement, knowing him like you did, what was that like to watch from afar?
Well, it was nice to see the way he was starting to really enjoy life. That's the saddest part of it all. And what a great dad he was. We all saw that firsthand. He anybody who's played at his level is going to have a difficult time after the games are over because of the competitive fire. And then you take a guy who was maybe one of the best five we've ever seen in NBA history. He was at a different level. And so he needed that time between. And then you could see him starting to relax, starting to enjoy life. So that's the crusher. That's the heartbreaker for all of us.
Joel, so many people have reflected on Kobe. You got to see a ton of the on-court glory. If it was the 81-point game, the championships, is there a moment, a memory, a game that for you always stands out?
Well, it's not a game. It's just kind of when Powell arrived, everything changed in 9 and 10. And I was there 2003 and 4 when they lost to the finals. That was my first year when it was Shaq and Kobe, and then Karl Malone and Gary Payton came in. So I saw that version. Then I saw the 6 and 7 seasons where they lost in the first round, and Kobe would vent to me on the back of the charter. We had a couch in those days at the back of the charter, and he'd tap me, and I'd go in back, and he'd let me know how he felt and what Mitch needed to do. And it was classic Kobe because he cared so much. That's what people, maybe they didn't see that part of him. They knew how much he cared on the floor, but he cared in the big picture. He was a Laker for life. There was one time when he thought about it, but it wasn't long. And then with the expiring contract of Kwame Brown, Pau Gasol arrived, and it changed the dynamic completely. So that was the best part for me, to see him get those rings in 9 and 10. He wanted 6. He wanted to match Michael. There's no question about that. But when you watch somebody at that level consistently, you're pretty amazed. You're not surprised, but you're amazed at how professional they are each and every night. And it's kind of like LeBron, who plays a lot of games now. And Kobe, he wasn't a big load management guy. Kobe wanted to be on the floor. I remember the night in the Garden in February of 2009, and I called a 61-point game, which was a record at the Garden at the time, and then it still is an opponent's record. And he put on a show. He was everybody forgets it's entertainment. It's sports, but it's entertainment. And we want to be entertained. And to watch Kobe, you were always entertained. You were never cheated at all. And then when he put on that show at the Garden that night, 61 points, he was at his very best. I know the 81-point game was big against the Raptors, and they needed all 81 because they came from behind.
Right.
And the Raptors led most of that game. People don't realize. But the 61-point game at the Garden in front of that crowd, I mean, he was in his element.
He's Joel Meyers. He is the television voice of the Pelicans. The Pels right now are in Cleveland. I certainly, Joel, appreciate your candor. I know our audience does as well. I'll just clumsily transition to tonight. It's Zion's first road game. Being with the team, how does it seem like he's handling physically and just the stress of starting his NBA career now going on the road?
Well, I don't think there's any stress for him. He's just a joy to be around, and I mean that in all the positive ways, Matt. He he wants to succeed. So, but I don't know if it's stress as much as pressure that he might put on himself. And I don't even know if he puts that kind of pressure on himself because he plays within the right way in the game. He lets the game come to him. We've already seen that in 3 games. And then as his increase in minutes arrive, and we saw that in the Boston Celtics game on Sunday, then you see some of the things he can do. When he had that putback dunk, his elbows were above the rim. He was, I mean, not a lot of guys get up there, and he made it look easy. His vertical is scary as well. That was a running start, but straight up and down vertical, and then his second bounce. So he will get on the bus. He'll dap everybody down the aisle. He is such a great young guy. In his background, and you guys all know his background. His dad played college football. His mom ran track as well. His stepdad Lee, Division I, played basketball at Clemson, had a tryout with the 76ers. So he comes from a great environment, people that know what it takes. And he's got this way about him. When we arrive in these markets, believe it or not, there's a lot of people waiting outside the hotel. It's not quite the Beatles, 1964, but it's pretty darn close.
Joel Meyers on Twitter at Joel Meyers NBA. Our last thing for you, this team is obviously going to make a push toward the playoff, but for you watching them every minute of the season so far, in the 3 games with Zion, how are they different fundamentally with him than they were without him?
Well, they're going to get easier scores, and then it seems like Zion and Lonzo were made for each other. Lonzo had 15 assists, a career best last game. I think they're just starting to scratch the relationship on what they can do on the floor together. So when you look at Pels, don't look at just today, because Zion, Jackson Hayes, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Frank Jackson, I go down the list. There's some really good young talent on this team. You couple that with Drew and JJ and Derek Favors, and we hope Derek is back next year. I'd love to see him back because he's a pro. He's a serious pro. And the Pels don't get pushed around when he's on the floor. So when you look at it, I love where the Pels are headed. Right now it's frustrating because they don't have enough wins, and they're only 5 back in the loss column, so they can make a push. And it almost feels like they're ready to make a run because the schedule's going to get much better. But at the same time, it's not about today for the Pels. As much as we want it right now, Matt, the future is unbelievably bright. So I mean that sincerely. I love where the Pels are headed.
Today is the Pels in Cleveland against the Cavaliers. New Orleans, a 9-point favorite. You can watch the game on Fox Sports New Orleans. Of course, Joel Meyers will be on the call. As always, appreciate it when you can squeeze in a few minutes. Thanks so much for your candor, for sharing with us, and have a great call tonight.
You got it. Thanks, Matt.
All righty. That is Joel Meyers.